Are you feeling lost and oftentimes wonder, will anyone ever find me in this dark place? I feel you, I see you, I was there until I found Jesus and His grace. Welcome to the If It's Just One podcast. I'm your host, Stashani Atkins. I must admit I don't have it all together, but I believe with a little encouragement we will make it to heaven together. We oftentimes underestimate the power of one, but Jesus left the 99 for one. And so, if this podcast only reaches one person, that's all that matters. This podcast will be focused on encouraging you, my brothers and sisters, to rise above the challenges that prevent us from being who God has called us to be. Stay tuned. We really need each other. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. We're at episode 6 entitled, Are You a People Pleaser? Well, yes, I am a people pleaser. God is working on me as I speak. But do you know that the devil can use people pleasing to prevent us from being who God has called us to be? We can be so focused on what others want us to be that we neglect the true calling on our lives. Maybe you have always wanted to choose a particular career path in school, but your parents wanted you to choose another career path that is more prestige so they can look good among their friends when they're discussing what their children are going to study. And so you chose that career path to please them, knowing very well that you will be unhappy because you will be doing a job you have zero passion for. Or maybe your friends were going somewhere and you have no interest in those places, but you went anyways because you wanted to please them. It can be so hard to say no to the people we love and value, but sometimes we have to, not because they don't love us or wish the best for us, but because good isn't always God. Sometimes God is calling us to do something or to go somewhere that could change the trajectory of our lives. But one advice from a person that we value and love can let us throw that all away. And it is not that the person who gave the advice doesn't love us. It's just that they don't sit where God sits. And so they can't see what God sees. They can see to the corner, but God can see what's around the corner. They can see the mountain, but God can see what's on the other side of the mountain. As I am speaking, I can recall a situation in St. Matthew 16, verse 21 to 23, between Jesus and his close friend Peter, who was one of his disciples. Jesus was telling the disciples how he will suffer under the hands of the chief priests and scribes, and will be put to death, but will rise again on the third day. He was basically revealing his purpose on earth to them. But then Peter took Jesus and started to rebuke him, saying that would never happen to him. But Jesus turned to him and said, "Get behind me, Satan." Now, why would Jesus say that to his friend? Peter had good intentions towards Jesus. He heard Jesus say that he would be put to death, and being a good friend, he began to tell Jesus, oh, that would never happen. But as well-intentioned as he was blocking the will of God, the very mission that Jesus came to accomplish. Hence, Jesus saying, "You are an offense unto me," because he was looking at things from the point of view of man, but not from God. And so sometimes the people in our lives are like Peter. They wish us well, but at the same time they're obstructing the will of God for our lives. And if we're people pleasers, we will say yes to these people and say no to God. I can remember when I was about to get baptized, there were people who were close to me saying I was not ready for such a commitment. Now these people might be genuinely concerned and didn't want me to commit unless I know I was really ready. But I had to choose in that moment if I was going to be a people pleaser or neglect the call of God. I don't think people pleasing is always unhealthy, because it is a good thing to serve others and be concerned for their interests. People pleasing becomes unhealthy when we're willing to please people, even if it means destroying our lives, or someone else's life, or even the person's life who we're trying to please. People pleasing is also unhealthy when pleasing others is more of a motivator than pleasing God. When we start to please people so as to gain favor from them and to make ourselves feel good rather than seeking what's best for them, we're not loving others as God loved them. Also, when we start to make the reaction of other people our standards, we start to value these people's opinions over God, which is idolatry, and God says we should have no other gods before Him. Also, when we start to lean on people and their praises, we're bound to fall, because people's feelings will change and their emotions will fluctuate, and we will find ourselves unbalanced, going wherever those emotions and feelings send us. On the other hand, when we learn to lean on what God says about us, we will forever stand tall, because God doesn't change. He is the only constant in our lives. Also, people pleasing is not a good thing for the person who we're trying to please, because it is impossible for us to please everyone all the time, and they will be disappointed at some point. People pleasing, I believe, is just a fruit in our lives, meaning it is the product of something else. For me, it was low self-worth. Yes, I struggled with low self-worth for a time, and I will be going further into this as I go along the podcast journey. But yeah, my low self-worth led to people pleasing, where there was a deep need for the approval of others and for others to love me. And so if you are a people pleaser, it could be a product of something else in your life. We can follow the example of Jesus. While he was doing good for others, he lived only to please God. This required him to speak uncomfortable truths, even when others were angry and judged him. So we should always strive to please God in everything we do, as Galatians 1 verse 10 says, "For do I now persuade men or God, or do I seek to please men? For if I yet please men, I should not be a servant of Christ." We might be scared to tell the truth to a friend or someone else who is close to us because we don't want to lose that person. Sometimes we allow our friends and family members to continue in a life of sin by making them feel good instead of challenging them to righteous living instead. I must admit it is hard, but we can learn to tell the truth in love, not in a harsh, condescending manner. And as I said at the start of the episode, this is something God is working on in my life, and I know one day I will be fully delivered from people pleasing. So, if you're struggling with people pleasing and you're wondering, how can I break free? The first step to freedom is to confess it as a sin and ask God for forgiveness for putting people's approval above Him. Acknowledge that you need deliverance in this area and only God can provide it. Give your lives to God because He is the only constant in our lives. When someone will get up and decide not to love us anymore, God will always love us because His love is unconditional. He doesn't love us based on what we can do for Him. And so on days when we fail Him, He will never fail us. Replace the urge to please people with the Word of God. Increase in your knowledge of God and use it to combat people pleasing. So today, look to God and you will realize you do not have to do anything to please Him, as He has already left the 99 for you. So, if you have a testimony of how God has delivered you from people pleasing, please feel free to share in the comment section. If this episode has encouraged you, please like and subscribe and share with someone you think it will encourage. See you in the next episode. And remember, we need Jesus and we need each other.